Have you ever felt like you're in an impossible situation, backed into a corner with no way out? It's a feeling we all know. But what if I told you there's a story, thousands of years old, that speaks directly to that feeling? A story about courage, faith, and surviving the lion's den, literally. Today, we're diving into the incredible life of Daniel, a man whose story is so much more than just a Sunday school lesson. It's a masterclass in resilience and integrity. Let's set the scene. Imagine you're a teenager, probably just figuring out life, and suddenly your world is turned upside down. Your home city, Jerusalem, is conquered by the most powerful empire of the time, Babylon. You're ripped away from your family, your friends, everything you've ever known, and marched hundreds of miles to a foreign land. This isn't just a change of scenery. It's a complete cultural shock. New language, new customs, new gods. This is exactly what happened to Daniel and his friends. They were handpicked, not just randomly, but because they were the best and brightest. The Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, had a plan. He wanted to assimilate the sharpest minds from his conquered territories into his own court. So Daniel and his companions, you might know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were enrolled in a 3-year royal training program. Think of it as the most intense, high-stakes internship imaginable. They were given new Babylonian names, taught the local language and literature, and were meant to be molded into loyal servants of the empire. But right from the start, there was a problem. The king offered them the best food and wine from his own table. Sounds great, right? A free pass to the royal buffet. But for Daniel, it was a test of his identity. This food was likely dedicated to Babylonian idols and did unfollow the dietary laws he had grown up with. It was a subtle but powerful way to force him to abandon his heritage and his faith. So, what did he do? He could have just gone along with it. Who would know? It would have been the easy path. Daniel chose the harder right over the easier wrong. He politely but firmly requested a different diet, just vegetables and water. This was a huge risk. He wasn't just being a picky eater. He was challenging the king's provision, which could have been seen as an act of rebellion. The official in charge was terrified. He said, "If you look worse than the other young men, the king will have my head." This is where Daniel's wisdom really shines. He didn't just demand, he proposed a test. He said, "Just try it for 10 days. Give us vegetables and water and the others the king's food. After 10 days, compare us and see." It was a reasonable, faith-filled proposal. And guess what happened? After 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and better nourished than everyone else. They passed the test, proving that their commitment wasn't just about stubbornness. It was about a faith that truly sustained them. This early victory set the stage for everything that followed. Daniel and his friends excelled in their studies, and when their training was complete, the king found them to be 10 times wiser and more capable than all the magicians and enchanters in his entire kingdom. They weren't just smart. They had a divine wisdom that set them apart. Now, let's fast forward a bit to one of the most famous parts of the story. King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, a deeply troubling one that wakes him up in a cold sweat. He knows it's important, but he can't remember the details. So, he calls in his usual crew of wise men, the magicians and sorcerers, and gives them an impossible task. Tell me what I dreamed, and then tell me what it means. They are completely stumped. They protest. No one on earth can do what the king asks. Only the gods could do this. The king flies into a rage and orders all the wise men of Babylon, including Daniel and his friends, to be executed. The clock is ticking. When the guards come for Daniel, he doesn't panic. He calmly asks for a little time and an audience with the king. Then he does what he always does. He turns to his source of strength. He and his friends pray. They don't just hope for the best. They actively seek divine intervention. And that night, the mystery of the dream is revealed to Daniel in a vision. He sees a colossal statue made of different materials, head of gold, chest, and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of mixed iron and clay. Then a rock, not cut by human hands, smashes the statue to pieces and grows into a mountain that fills the whole earth. The next day, Daniel stands before the most powerful man in the world. He starts not by boasting, but by giving credit where it's due. He says, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." He then lays out the dream and its interpretation with perfect accuracy. The statue represents a succession of world empires, starting with Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, the head of gold. Each subsequent kingdom would be strong, but progressively inferior, culminating in a divided and brittle final empire. And the rock. That represented a divine, unbreakable kingdom that would one day destroy all the others and last forever. Nebuchadnezzar is blown away. He falls on his face and acknowledges that Daniel's God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings. He promotes Daniel to a high position, making him ruler over the entire province of Babylon. It's an astonishing turn of events. From a captive on death row to the second most powerful man in the empire, all because he trusted in a power greater than himself. But the story doesn't end there. Daniel served under multiple kings, and his integrity would be tested again and again. Decades later, under a new king named Darius, Daniel's success made other officials incredibly jealous. They couldn't find any fault in his work. He was trustworthy, responsible, and diligent. So, they decided to trap him using his greatest strength, his faith. They tricked King Darius into signing an unbreakable decree. For the next 30 days, anyone who prayed to any god or human other than the king would be thrown into a den of lions. They knew Daniel's habit. They knew he prayed 3 times a day, every day, facing toward Jerusalem, in front of an open window. When Daniel heard about the new law, he didn't change a thing. He went home, opened his windows, just like always, got down on his knees, and prayed. He didn't hide. He didn't compromise. His communion with God was more important to him than his own life. Of course, his enemies were watching. They rushed to the king, tattling on Daniel. King Darius was devastated. He had been tricked. He liked and respected Daniel immensely, and spent the whole day trying to find a loophole to save him. But the law was binding. With a heavy heart, he gave the order. As Daniel was led to the lion's den, the king's last words to him were, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." A large stone was rolled over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own ring. The king spent a sleepless night, fasting and worrying. At the first light of dawn, he rushed back to the den. He called out in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" And then a voice from the pit, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight." The joy and relief the king must have felt is hard to imagine. He ordered Daniel to be lifted out, and there wasn't a single scratch on him. The king then commanded that the men who had falsely accused Daniel be thrown into the den with their families, and the lions immediately overpowered them. King Darius then issued a new decree to his entire empire, declaring that everyone should fear and revere the God of Daniel, for he is the living God. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. The story of Daniel is so powerful because it's not just about surviving lions or interpreting dreams. It's about what happens when you decide what you stand for and refuse to compromise, no matter the pressure. It's about having a quiet confidence that isn't dependent on your circumstances. Daniel faced palace politics, cultural pressure, and life-threatening situations, but his response was always the same: unwavering faith and integrity. His story asks us a question: what are our non-negotiables? What are the principles we're willing to stand for, even when it's inconvenient or costly? In a world that often pressures us to blend in and compromise, Daniel's life is a brilliant example of what it means to stand out. It's a reminder that true strength doesn't come from power or position, and a connection to something greater than ourselves. That's the kind of strength that can shut the mouths of lions. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the past today. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that challenge and inspire. See you next time.